This is Tina Borger, NIGP Research Director, and we're here to cover the values and guiding principles for public procurement. Have you ever been asked why? Why can't you accept a late bid? Why is it so bad to have lunch with a supplier? Why do I have to compete a service when I'm happy with my current provider? After you give the answer, have you ever been asked to back up your answer by citing a trusted written source? Probably like you, I know things without remembering how I know them. And while our peers in accounting and finance can cite generally accepted accounting principles, the best we have been able to do is to search through NIGP course material and textbooks to find an expert to quote. The NIGP Board of Directors decided it was time for NIGP to take the lead on developing standardized guidance for public procurement. Procurement affects and is affected by the entire organization and the community it serves. Rather than doing this guidance in a vacuum, NIGP decided on cross-functional collaboration through the public sector. We believe that by inviting all stakeholders to the project, the end result will be more valuable, useful, and accepted. We started with research on public procurement around the world with a focus on nations with English translations of principles. We located over 30 nations with stated principles. We also reviewed 9 non-governmental units, or NGOs, such as the United Nations and the World Bank. We then worked through a task force of NIGP members appointed by then NIGP President Paul Brennan. Throughout the development process, NIGP sought public comments through the Principles and Practices blog site, the NIGP website, and through direct communications, such as emails. We received and worked through over 200 comments, and on October 23, 2010, the NIGP Board of Directors adopted the values and guiding principles for public procurement. In this webinar, we will step you through the development process and share the adopted values and guiding principles along with their importance and application. The task force met at the NIGP offices in Herndon, Virginia in December 2009. As we started the work session, we had done our research and we had a clear idea of our assignment. Or did we? We were tasked with developing guiding principles for the profession. But before we could do that, we needed to build a foundation and figure out how all the parts fit together. Using the three-legged stool concept, we set out to agree on the true basic purpose of public procurement. The task force determined that there were 3 pillars on which public procurement rests and which public procurement should support. All public procurement agencies, large or small, and the professionals who work in the field are dependent on a high level of public trust. Public employees serve a unique role in society, known as public service. There is a general consensus that good governance requires good government employees. These employees must ensure that public organizations use their authority without bias. Finally, justice is best served when professionals exercise judgment within established legal frameworks to balance competing interests among all stakeholders, and do so with the explicit intent to ensure that decisions and actions are proper, fair, and appropriate. So with the pillars in place, we thought we were ready to go on to the guiding principles. Nope, there was still a layer of the foundation missing. We determined that values preceded principles, and the values were defined as shown here. It's important to know that values influence our behaviors. With the concept of values in place, it was now clear that any guiding principles had to reflect our values. As the name implies, guiding principles guide the behavior within a profession. These 6 values have been of the public procurement profession: accountability, ethics, impartiality, professionalism, service, and transparency. Let's go through each one. I once sold a piece of surplus equipment as a procurement manager for $10 after months of trying to sell it through various methods. As soon as I did, of course, a citizen came forward and went to the press with an offer of $2,000. The value in the item was in its engine, and it never occurred to me to cannibalize the item and sell it for its parts. While it was personally difficult, it's important that we all take responsibility for our errors when they occur. Accountability, then, taking ownership and being responsible to stakeholders for our actions, and it's essential to preserve the public trust and to protect the public interest. Ethics, or acting in a manner true to our values, is essential to preserve the public trust. As a young buyer, a supplier once offered me a ride in the Goodyear blimp. It was something I really wanted to do. I will admit to being tempted, but the ethics of our profession clearly prohibit accepting such gifts. And whether a gift would affect your judgment or not, even the appearance of an impropriety damages the integrity we work so hard to maintain in public procurement. Impartiality is essential to ensure fairness for the public good. It's unbiased decision-making and actions. As an example of this value, telecommunications was part of my responsibilities as a procurement manager. I had a contract for telecommunications equipment with a small supplier. We always received excellent service from them, and the president of this quickly growing company was at every one of our monthly project meetings. It came time to recompete the contract, and this company was 1 minute late in delivering their bid. On the one hand, my telecommunications job would have been much easier if the company had remained as the contractor. However, in the procurement part of my job, impartiality and the consistent application of policy had to govern my actions. This value of professionalism, which is essential to balance diverse public interest and is upholding high standards of job performance and ethical behavior, is more important than ever. However, it's also more challenging in today's tough economy. How do we uphold high standards of job performance in a profession that grows more complex and challenging each day when funding for training is at an all-time low? Due to staff cutbacks, time is also a limited commodity. However, as professionals, we must make time for continuous learning and make it a priority in our profession. Service is the obligation to assist our stakeholders, and it's essential to support the public good. I came into public procurement when it was very much a command and control profession. We followed the rules and regulations, and by doing so without question, we felt we were doing a great job back in those days. However, it became clear that our customers and suppliers did not agree that we were doing a great job. Obviously, rules and regulations are necessary in public procurement, but procurement must also focus on serving the customer's needs within the rules. Service is finding a way rather than saying no. Procurement has transitioned from command and control to strategic problem solving, and this value shows that. The sixth value of transparency, which means easily accessible and understandable policies and processes, is essential to demonstrate the responsible use of public funds. I'm sure you have all heard of government procurement compared to being in a fishbowl. The value of transparency calls for embracing that concept, not trying to avoid it. However, while castles and plants offer good hiding places for a fish in a fishbowl, Procurement must not hide behind complex policies and procedures or legalese in our contracts and in our policies. With the values in place, we were then ready to start working on the guiding principles. As this slide shows, the guiding principles are intended to apply at all levels, from the profession as a whole, organizationally, and down to each person within the profession. Here you see a number of guiding principles under the value of accountability. To explain these a bit, without sound business judgment, we might recommend a purchase based on a low initial price and a high cost of ownership. If we focus solely on our own procurement regulations, we might inadvertently cost our agencies the reimbursement of federal funds because we simply forgot to check the debarment website. If we save on everyday purchases for our agency but overlook fraud and abuse, we've not done our jobs. Most of us know the part of maximizing competition, but are our thresholds set at levels that are impractical for the government and suppliers? Have they kept up with inflation? Part of due diligence is targeting the best suppliers for the goods or services you are procuring, rather than simply relying on your bidders list or suppliers finding the opportunity online. Unless acquisitions are economic, efficient, and effective, we have not done our jobs well. A low price for inadequate services or quality or late delivery does not save 5 or 10%. It wastes 100%. Procurement's role has expanded. We now have to be mindful of and comply with sustainability issues. And yes, we have to focus on doing things differently in this rapidly changing world, or we become obsolete. It's not about process, it's about value. Perception is a damaging element of ethics. If you are seen as unethical, the damage is done, regardless of what you have or have not done. If we are inconsistent in the application of rules, procedures, or actions, our integrity becomes questionable, and when we lose the integrity of the procurement process, it no longer holds value. Ethics matter even when, or perhaps especially when, no one is looking. When faced with an ethical dilemma, seek the strictest interpretation, not the most lenient. Government ethics are often written for the typical government employee. However, those in public procurement must be held to the highest standard as found in the NIGP Code of Ethics. For impartiality, if we favor current suppliers over new suppliers or give information to some but not all bidders, we erode the process to the point that only the favored will participate. Innovation and competition decrease, and our stakeholders suffer. If we listen to our suppliers about how we might be constraining competition, we can learn how to buy more effectively. We can maximize competition and probably save money. Using specialized judgment to balance competing interests is a hallmark of a true profession. Protest requires such judgment, for example. It's not easy to take a step back and seriously consider that a process may have been flawed. However, we must do exactly that to ensure the interests of all are served in the long run. Professionalism. Everyone has a boss, but the person directly responsible for procurement should have the education and experience evidenced by professional certification to professionally lead the procurement function. What has worked in the past may no longer work in today's world. Procurement must evolve and find new ways to contribute to the organization. And only through concerted efforts will procurement become a recognized profession. We must push ourselves and others towards continuing education and innovation. Through mentoring and collaborative relationships, we can expand our knowledge and the profession. Public service goes beyond our immediate positions. We can look beyond job descriptions and provide value across the organization and into our communities. Take the responsibility to develop working relationships with all stakeholders. Collaboration is more effective than directing. Yes, we have to do it all. Meet the needs of the organization and the public while protecting the interest of all and with the customer focus. And the sixth value of transparency. Yep, the Freedom of Information Act provides guidance on what must be made public and what may be protected. However, where guidance is silent, we must use discretion in releasing confidential information. As I've mentioned, our world changes rapidly. Our policies, procedures, and records must be kept current and complete. And transparency is not only about who was awarded the contract and how the money was spent. Transparency also requires open access to competitive opportunities. And public access to policies, procedures, and records must be timely to be valuable. With the completion of the guiding principles, we have a good start on standardized guidance for public procurement. For your own copy of these values and guiding principles, please visit nigp.org and download the PDF. We already have a few organizations that have or are considering endorsing or adopting these values and guiding principles. We also plan to review them for necessary revisions on a regular basis. The next exciting step in the development of standards of practice, which will provide additional guidance in implementing these guiding principles. At this point, I would like to introduce Candace Riddle, NIGP's Standards of Practice Manager. Candace will take us through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Tina. As you see here on your screen, you see supporting organizations. Thus far, the values and guiding principles have already gained support from some of these organizations and many more. This is a non-exhaustive list, and a complete listing can be found online on our blog site, which I'll be giving you in just a moment. In addition to just these supporting organizations, the project is gaining ground worldwide. This demonstration here on your screen shows you visits to the blog site from around the world. The blog and project have already had exposure in some of the above-listed countries, and as we seek to raise the level of the public procurement profession, this is very exciting evidence that not only is the project gaining ground and international exposure, but the profession as a whole and the guidance provided by the values, guiding principles, and standards of practice are becoming collectively recognized. So how can you get involved? As I just mentioned, you can become a follower. You can go to www.principlesandpractices.posterous.com, or you can visit Twitter and follow us at official NIGP. So as Tina said, the next step in this process is going to be the collaborative development of the standards of practice. So what is a standard of practice? Standards of practice are collaborative and should encompass the most efficient and effective or best results way of accomplishing a task. Without comparing our practices to that of others, there will be no way to determine whether or not our way of performing certain tasks is the most efficient and effective way. Therefore, standards of practice should be based on repeatable procedures that have proven themselves over time for large numbers of people, hence the need for their collaborative creation. In addition, a best practice can and should evolve and become better as improvements are discovered. Let's talk about a possible example of what might be considered a standard of practice. Online solicitations are a relatively new technology in the history of procurement, but has been proven by some to be a more efficient and effective way of facilitating competition. So is this a best practice? You decide. As you're sitting there watching this presentation, you decide, is it collaborative? Has it been proven by a large number of people or procurement organizations? Is it more efficient and effective than the traditional paper method? Is it repeatable? Can other organizations implement similar programs? And is it evolving? Is there still room for improvement over time? You decide. So why does this matter? It can be used as a reference for you on a daily basis. If you need to know how to develop a performance management strategy for your organization, you can look to these standards of practice for that reference. It can be used as a reason. When questioned by stakeholders or others within your organization, use the values and guiding principles and the standards of practice as a quick written reason to back your reasoning behind what you are doing. And it's also used for recognition. Other professions have similar reference materials. The Government Finance Officers Association have GFOA budget practices. We are seeking to gain similar recognition and raise the awareness of the importance of the public procurement profession. So where does all of this fit? The picture on your screen is similar to that of a game that you might recognize from childhood known as Candyland. And just like Candyland, a profession has to meet key characteristics along the way in order to get to the top. So what are some key characteristics of profession? A body of knowledge that supports the practice and study of the profession. This is demonstrated here by the training and education blocks. Autonomy over one's actions as a member of the profession. This is demonstrated on the bottom by the values and guiding principles and standards of practice block. And regulation of entry into the profession. This is demonstrated here on the screen by the certification block. Training and professional certification are established through NIGP training and UPPCC certification. However, only a few colleges and universities offer degree courses specific to public procurement. It is our goal to raise the professionalism of public procurement where public procurement degrees are commonplace and required to practice. Achieving autonomy for our profession, another key characteristic, is difficult because public procurement is intertwined with other areas of government. However, the development of values and guiding principles and standards of practice will help procurement demarcate and exercise control over its responsibilities, activities, and duties. Achieving professionalism for public procurement is similar to this picture, which illustrates the game of Candyland. Just like Candyland, certain elements, or in our case, key characteristics of a profession must be met to truly achieve recognition as such. I hope this helps each of you to better understand the importance of this monumentous project, and furthermore, I hope it gets you excited and motivated to share the word. Thank you for joining us here today.